The transport ship slowly moved towards Station Valora, and Una pressed her face against the small window like a child seeing snow for the first time. The station was massive. It stretched across the darkness of space like a silver flower with 1,000 petals. Lights blinked from every surface. Ships of all sizes moved around it like bees around a hive. Una was 23 years old. She had black hair cut short and practical. Her hands were small but steady. She came from a fishing village on Jeju Island in Korea, a place where the sea met the sky, and old women still remembered the songs about stars. She was also the first human ever accepted into the Galactic Navigation Academy. The transport docked with a gentle bump. Una picked up her single bag and walked toward the exit. Her heart was beating fast, but she kept her face calm. Her grandmother had taught her that never show fear. Fear is like blood in the water. It brings sharks. The registration hall was bigger than any building Una had ever seen. The ceiling was so high that clouds could form inside. Beings of every shape and size moved through the space. Some walked on 2 legs like her. Some floated. Some crawled. Some seemed to exist in more dimensions than Una could understand. She felt very small, very alone, very human. Amirathi walked past her, and Una had to step back to avoid being knocked down. The Mirathi were tall, almost 8 feet, and they looked like praying mantises made of green crystal. Their wings caught the light and threw rainbows across the floor. This one did not even look at Una. Humans were new to space. Humans were small and weak, and had only discovered faster than light travel 40 years ago. Humans were nobody. Una found the registration desk after 20 minutes of walking. The being behind the desk was a Solani, a species that looked like floating jellyfish made of light. It communicated by changing colors and patterns across its body. A translation device hung in the air between them. "Name and species," the device said in a flat voice. "Una, human from Earth." The Solani's lights flickered. Surprise, maybe. Or amusement. "You are the human. Room assignment. Level 7, Section 4, Unit 12. Your roommate is Pelox of the Mirathi." Una took the small tablet that contained her room key and schedule. "Thank you. The Navigation Academy welcomes all species," the device translated. The Solani's lights flickered again. Even new ones. Una walked away without responding. She had learned long ago that the best response to an insult was success. Finding her room took another hour. The station was designed for beings who could fly, or teleport, or bend space. Una had to walk. By the time she reached Level 7, Section 4, Unit 12, her legs hurt and her bag felt like it was full of rocks. The door opened automatically as she approached. The room inside was simple. 2 sleeping areas. 2 desks. 1 window showing the stars outside. And 1 Marathi standing in the middle of the room, looking at Una with eyes that held no warmth. "You are the human," Pelox said. The Mirathi's voice was like wind through dry leaves. "Yes, I am Una. I know who you are. Everyone knows. The human who passed the entrance exam." Pelox moved closer. Una had to look up to meet those cold eyes. "Your species only discovered space travel 40 cycles ago. My species has been sailing between stars for 12,000 cycles. How did you qualify for this academy?" "I passed the exam," Una said simply. "The navigation mathematics portion has a 12% pass rate. Species with 10,000 years of history fail that exam. Species with the greatest minds in the galaxy fail that exam." Pelox leaned down, and Una could smell something like cinnamon and copper. How did a human pass? Una put her bag on the empty bed. She began to unpack slowly, calmly. "I found it interesting." "Interesting?" "Yes, the questions were interesting. The problems were interesting." She pulled out a small photo and placed it on her desk. An old woman standing on a wooden boat, the sea behind her, the sky full of stars above her. My grandmother would have liked them. Pelox made a sound that the translator could not interpret. You are strange, human. Maybe, Yuna agreed. But I am here. Same as you. She finished unpacking in silence. Pelox watched her for a while, then went to their own side of the room. The Mirathi did not speak to her again that night. Yuna lay in her bed and looked out the window at the stars. They were different here. Wrong. The patterns she had known all her life were gone. No Big Dipper. No North Star. No familiar friends to guide her home. But stars were stars. Light was light. And patterns existed everywhere, if you knew how to look. Her grandmother had taught her that too. The old woman had been a hanye, a sea diver who collected shellfish from the ocean floor. She had worked without oxygen tanks, holding her breath for minutes at a time, diving deep into cold water. At night, when the fishing boats went far from shore, she would look up at the sky and navigate by the stars alone. The sky is a map, her grandmother had said. It never lies. Machines can break. Computers can fail. But the stars are always there, Yuna. Learn to read them and you will never be lost. Yuna had learned. She had spent her childhood on boats, looking up, memorizing the patterns. She had learned the old songs that told sailors which stars to follow. She had learned to feel direction in her bones, to know north without thinking, to sense the relationship between points of light separated by billions of kilometers. When the entrance exam for the Navigation Academy had asked her to calculate the route through a complex star system, she had not used the formulas. She had looked at the diagram and seen patterns. She had felt the answer the same way her grandmother had felt the direction home. She had finished the exam in 3 hours. The time limit was 40. Now she was here, surrounded by species who had traveled the stars when humans were still living in caves. They thought she was nobody. They thought she was a mistake. Yuna smiled in the darkness. Her grandmother had faced the cold ocean every day for 60 years. She had faced storms that killed boats. She had faced sharks and currents and waves taller than houses. And she had always found her way home. Yuna closed her eyes and let the strange stars watch over her as she slept. Tomorrow the real work would begin. Tomorrow she would show them what a human could do. The stars had brought her here. The stars would show her the way. 3 months passed at the Galactic Navigation Academy. Yuna learned many things. She learned the mathematics of space travel, the equations that described how gravity bent light and time. She learned about wormholes and hyperspace corridors and the 1,000 ways a ship could die between the stars. She also learned that most of her classmates thought she did not belong. The Mirathi whispered when she walked past. The Vorthani refused to sit near her in lectures. The Solani instructors called on her less often than others, as if her answers did not matter. Only a few treated her with respect, and they were the ones who had seen her test scores. Yuna did not complain. She did not argue. She simply worked harder than everyone else and waited. Pelox, her roommate, had become slightly less cold over the months. The Mirathi still thought humans were primitive, but there was now a kind of grudging respect in those crystal eyes. Yuna helped Pelox with spatial calculations sometimes. Pelox helped Yuna understand the political history of the galaxy. It was not friendship, but it was something. On the first day of the 4th month, Instructor Veth called all students to the Great Hall. Veth was an old Solani. Their lights dim with age, but still sharp with intelligence. They floated at the front of the hall like a dying star, beautiful and terrible. The midterm examination begins today, Veth announced. The translator made their voice boom through the hall. This examination has been given for 6,000 years. It is the same test that your ancestors took. It is the same test that your descendants will take. It does not change because space does not change. A murmur ran through the students. Everyone knew about the midterm. It was legendary. Famous navigators had failed it. Entire species had been humiliated by it. You will be placed in simulation pods, Beth continued. The scenario is simple. Your ship's navigation computer has failed. You are in the Carani Nebula. You must plot a course to safety. The Carani Nebula. Yuna felt her stomach tighten. She had studied it in class. It was a nightmare of gravitational anomalies, radiation storms, and dead zones where no signal could reach. Ships had been lost there for centuries before anyone mapped safe routes through it. You will have access to raw sensor data and mathematical tools. Nothing else. No star charts. No pre-calculated routes. No help from the outside. Veth's lights pulsed slowly. You must calculate a safe path using only your knowledge and skill. A Vorthani student raised their hand. The Vorthani were the ones who had invented the standard navigation equations used across the galaxy. They were proud of this. What is the time limit, instructor? 1 standard week. 1 week. 7 days to calculate a route that computers took hours to verify. It sounded impossible. It was supposed to be impossible. That was the point. Veth continued. The pass rate for this examination is 23%. Those who fail will be given remedial training and a chance to retake it next cycle. Those who pass will move on to advanced courses. Those who achieve excellence will be noticed by the Galactic Navigation course. Excellence. Yuna thought about that word. What did it mean here? Finishing faster than others? Finding a better route? Surviving when others did not? Are there any questions? Yuna raised her hand. Veth's lights flickered with something like surprise. The human rarely spoke in large gatherings. Yes, student Yuna? Is there a window in the simulation pod? Or a viewport that shows the stars outside? Silence fell over the great hall. Hundreds of students turned to look at her. Yuna felt their eyes like weight on her skin, but she kept her face calm. Why would you need visual access to space during a mathematical examination? Veth asked. I learn better when I can see what I am working with, Yuna said. It was not a lie. It was not the full truth either. Veth conferred with the other instructors. Their lights blinked back and forth in rapid conversation. Finally, Veth turned back to the students. It is not prohibited. The examination rules do not mention visual access because no student has ever requested it before. It will not help you, student Yuna. The mathematics is the same whether you can see the stars or not. I understand, Yuna said. I would still like the viewport, please. Very well. Your pod will be modified. The examination began 1 hour later. The simulation pod was like a coffin made of light. Yuna lay inside it and felt the world dissolve around her. When she opened her eyes, she was on the bridge of a small cargo ship. Alarms were ringing. Red lights flashed. A mechanical voice announced that the navigation computer had suffered critical failure, and outside the viewport, the Carani Nebula burned. It was beautiful. Clouds of gas in every color Yuna could imagine, and some she could not. Stars being born in the heart of the chaos. Stars dying in brilliant explosions. And everywhere, the invisible dangers that would kill her if she flew into them. Yuna stood up and walked to the viewport. The other students, she knew, were already working. They would be pulling up sensor data, running calculations, building mathematical models of the nebula. They would work for days, maybe the full week, trying to find a safe path through the chaos. Yuna just looked at the stars. Her grandmother's voice came to her from memory. The sky is a map, Yuna. Every light is a landmark. Every pattern tells a story. You do not need machines to read it. You only need eyes and patience. The nebula was strange. It was nothing like the night sky over Jeju Island. But patterns were patterns. Relationships were relationships. The way light bent around a gravity will look the same here as it did anywhere else. The way radiation scattered through gas followed the same rules it had always followed. Yuna began to see it. Not the mathematics. Not the equations. But the shape of things. The flow of space. The safe paths that wound through the danger like rivers through mountains. She saw a cluster of young stars that reminded her of the Pleiades. She saw a bright point of light that could have been Polaris if she squinted. She saw the patterns that her ancestors had seen when they first looked up from their caves and wondered what the lights in the sky meant. The examination was supposed to take a week. Yuna sat down at the navigation console and began to input her route dot. She did not use the Krell equations. She did not use probabilistic modeling. She did not use any of the methods she had learned in class. She used her eyes, her memory, her bones. She used 100,000 years of human history, compressed into instinct. 6 hours after the examination began, Yuna submitted her answer. The simulation ended. The pod opened. Yuna stepped out into the real world and found Instructor Veth waiting for her. Lights blazing with something she had never seen before. Fear. What did you do? Veth demanded. Yuna blinked. I finished the examination. That is not possible. The fastest completion time in 6,000 years was 4 days. You finished in 6 hours. Is my route wrong? Veth did not answer. The old Solani just stared at her with lights that flickered between colors Yuna could not name. We will review your submission, Veth finally said. Return to your quarters and wait. Yuna nodded and walked away. She could feel Veth's eyes on her back all the way to the door. In her room. Pelox was still in the simulation. Yuna lay on her bed and looked out at the stars. 6 hours. She had finished in 6 hours. Her grandmother would have been proud. The news spread through Station Valora like fire through dry grass. A human had finished the navigation exam in 6 hours. Not a Vorthani with their 10,000 years of mathematical tradition. Not a Marathi with their perfect spatial memory. A human. A member of a species that had only left their planet 40 years ago. Yuna tried to stay in her room, but the walls felt like they were closing in. She needed air. She needed space. She needed stars. The observation lounge on level 12 was usually empty at this hour. Most species on the station did not care about looking at stars. They had seen enough stars in their long histories. Stars were just navigation points to them, mathematical problems to be solved. But to Yuna, stars were friends. She found a seat by the largest window and pressed her hand against the cold glass. The nebula was visible from here, a distant smear of color against the black. Somewhere in that chaos, her simulation self had found a path. Somewhere in those burning clouds, she had seen what others could not. Mind if I sit? Yuna turned. A man stood behind her, young, with the same black hair and careful eyes that she saw in her own mirror. Human. She could tell by the way he moved. The way he held himself. The way he smiled like someone who knew what it meant to be alone among strangers. Please, she said. He sat down next to her. I am Tayo. I work on the cargo docks, loading and unloading ships. Yuna, I know who you are. Tayo laughed softly. Everyone knows who you are now. The human who broke the navigation exam. I did not break anything. I just finished it. In 6 hours. The exam that takes most species a week. Tayo shook his head in wonder. They are saying you cheated. They are saying you had hidden technology. They are saying it is impossible. Yuna looked back at the stars. Do you think I cheated? No. Taiho's voice was certain. I have seen your eyes. You are looking at the stars right now, the way my mother used to look at the sea. Like you can read it. Like it speaks to you. It does speak to me. In a way. How? Yuna was quiet for a long moment. She had never explained this to anyone except her grandmother. She was not sure she could explain it at all. But Taiho was human. Maybe he would understand. My grandmother was a Hanya, she began. A sea diver. She worked in the waters around Jeju Island her whole life. No oxygen tanks. No modern equipment. Just her body and her breath and her knowledge of the sea. Taiho nodded. My grandfather was a fisherman in Bizen. I know the type. At night, when the boats went far from shore, my grandmother would navigate by the stars. No GPS, no computers. Just her eyes and her memory. Yuna touched the window again. She taught me the old ways. She taught me to see patterns in the sky. She taught me to feel direction in my bones. But these are not Earth stars, Taiho said. These are alien stars. Different patterns. Different positions. Yes, but the principles are the same. Yuna pointed out the window. See that cluster there? The aliens call it Sector 7 Gamma, but to me, it looks like the Pleiades. Same shape. Same relationship between the bright ones and the dim ones. And that bright star there, the one with the slight blue color? It reminds me of Polaris. Not the same star, but it sits in the same kind of position relative to everything else. Taiho stared at her. You are navigating by constellations. In deep space. Not exactly. I am navigating by relationships. By patterns. By the way things connect to each other. She turned to face him. The aliens calculate navigation using pure mathematics. They measure gravity wells by tracking radiation decay over time. Very accurate. Very slow. But I can look at how light bends around a gravity source and know what the safe path looks like. Not calculate. No, that sounds like magic. It is not magic. It is evolution. Yuna's voice grew soft. Humans spent 100,000 years looking up at the night sky. We mapped the stars before we had writing. We navigated oceans before we had compasses. We found our way across continents using nothing but memory and instinct. She touched her chest. It is in our blood. In our genes. In our very cells. We are creatures of the night sky. Taiho was silent for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. My grandfather used to say something similar. He said the sea talked to him. He said he could feel storms coming before they appeared on any radar. The aliens do not have this, Yuna said. Most of them evolved on worlds with cloudy skies, or underground, or in dimensions where light does not exist. They never needed to read the stars. They developed technology instead. She smiled sadly. They think we are primitive because we are new to space. But in some ways, we are the oldest navigators in the galaxy. So what happens now? I do not know. The instructors are reviewing my route. If it is wrong, I will fail like everyone else. If it is right, Yuna shrugged. Then they will have to accept that a human can do what they cannot. The door to the observation lounge opened. Pelog stood in the entrance, wings folded tight against their back. The Marathi looked exhausted. Their crystal skin was dull, and their eyes had lost their usual sharpness. Pelox, Yuna said. Did you finish the exam? Yes, after 5 days. Pelox walked closer, moving slowly, like someone who had not slept in far too long. My route was acceptable. Not optimal, but acceptable. I will pass. I am glad. Pelox stood over her, looking down with those alien eyes. How did you do it, Yuna? I have thought about nothing else for 5 days. How did a human, a member of a species that is barely out of its cave period, finish the navigation exam in 6 hours? Yuna looked up at her roommate, at the being who had doubted her from the first day, at the representative of a species with 12,000 years of spacefaring history. "I looked at the stars," she said simply, "and I remembered the way home." Pelox made a sound that the translator could not interpret. Then, slowly, the Mirathi sat down next to her. "Teach me," Pelox said. Yuna blinked. "What?" "Teach me to see what you see. Teach me to read the stars, the way your grandmother taught you." Pelox's voice held something new, something Yuna had never heard before from any alien: humility. "I do not know if I can," Yuna admitted. "It may be something only humans can do. Our brains evolved a certain way because of certain pressures. You may not be able to learn it. Then I will fail. But I want to try." Pelox looked out at the stars, and for the first time, Yuna saw wonder in those crystal eyes. "I have looked at the night sky 10,000 times. I never saw anything but mathematics. But you see something more. Something beautiful." The Mirathi turned back to her. "I want to see it too." Yuna smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had felt since arriving at the station. "Okay," she said. "I will try to teach you. But first, you need to forget everything you know about navigation. That is 12,000 years of knowledge." "I know." Yuna pointed at the window. "Now look at the stars. Do not think about equations. Do not think about calculations. Just look, and tell me what you see." Pelox looked. And for the first time in 12,000 years, a Mirathi saw the night sky through new eyes. The summons came 3 days after Yuna submitted her examination. She was called to the Central Administration Building, a tower of glass and light at the heart of Station Valora. She had never been inside before. Students were not usually allowed. Whatever was waiting for her, it was important. The room she entered was circular, with 7 seats arranged in a half-moon. 7 instructors sat in those seats, representing 7 of the most advanced species in the galaxy. Veth was there, lights pulsing slowly. And next to Veth sat a being Yuna recognized from her textbooks, Instructor Krell, of Orthani, the direct descendant of the mathematician who had invented the Krell equations 4,000 years ago. The Krell equations were the foundation of all modern space navigation. Every ship in the galaxy used them. Every navigation computer ran on them. Krell looked at Yuna with eyes like black stones. No warmth, no curiosity, just cold assessment. "Student Yuna of Earth," Veth said. "Please stand in the center of the room." Yuna walked forward and stood on the marked circle on the floor. Above her, a hologram flickered to life. A route through the Kerani Nebula glowed like a golden thread winding through the chaos. "This is your submitted examination," Veth continued. "We have spent 3 days reviewing it. We have run it through every simulation we have. We have checked it against every known danger in the nebula." Yuna waited. Her heart was beating fast, but her face showed nothing. "The route is optimal," Veth said. Yuna allowed herself to breathe. "It avoids 3 death zones that 94% of simulations miss entirely. It passes within safe margins of 7 gravitational anomalies. It would save an estimated 4 days of travel time compared to standard routes." Veth's lights flickered with something like disbelief. If this route were used by cargo ships traveling through the nebula, it would save millions of credits and countless lives every year. "Then I passed," Yuna said. "You did more than pass." Veth turned to look at Krell. "Instructor Krell has questions for you." Krell stood. The Vorthani were tall and thin, like living shadows made solid. They moved without sound, without wasted motion. They were considered the greatest mathematicians in the galaxy, and they knew it. "This is impossible," Krell said. Their voice was soft, almost gentle, but there was steel beneath the silk. "You did not use the Krell equations." I have examined every step of your calculation. You did not use them even once. That is correct, Una said. You did not use probabilistic modeling. You did not use gravitational mapping. You did not use radiation decay analysis. Krell stepped closer, and Una had to fight the urge to step back. You did not use any recognized methodology in the entire history of galactic navigation. So I ask you, human, what did you use? I used my eyes, Una said. And my memory. Silence fell over the room like snow. Explain, Krell demanded. Una looked up at the hologram of her root. She had not seen it displayed this way before. It really was beautiful, she thought. A golden thread through a maze of death. When I looked at the nebula through the viewport, I did not see numbers. I saw patterns. She stepped forward and pointed at a section of the root. Here, where the root curves around the gravity well. I did not calculate the safe distance. I saw the way light bent around the mass, and I knew where the danger began. The same way I would know not to walk too close to the edge of a cliff. That is not navigation, Krell said. That is intuition. Yes, that intuition based on 100,000 years of evolution. Una turned to face the review board. My species developed on a planet with clear skies. Every night, our ancestors looked up and saw the stars. They learned to navigate by them before they learned to write. They crossed oceans using nothing but the patterns in the sky. Primitive technology, Krell said dismissively. No, primitive technology would be machines that break. Computers that fail, equations that give wrong answers. Una met Krell's cold eyes without flinching. What I used is older than technology. It is instinct. It is memory. It is the ability to see relationships between things without having to calculate them. You cannot prove that. I do not need to prove it. The root proves it. Una pointed at the hologram again. Your equations would have found this root eventually. In a week, maybe 2. My eyes found it in 6 hours. The result is the same. Only the method is different. Krell was silent for a long moment. When they spoke again, their voice had changed. There was something new in it. Something that might have been respect or might have been fear. If what you say is true, then humans possess an ability that no other species in the galaxy has developed. An ability to see space navigation solutions without calculation. An ability to know routes instead of computing them. Yes, this would change everything. Krell turned to the other instructors. Every navigation system in the galaxy is based on mathematics. We spend years training navigators to use equations. We build computers that take hours to calculate routes. But if humans can simply see the answers, we cannot all see them, Una said quickly. I am not sure how many of my species share this ability. Maybe it is rare. Maybe it requires training from childhood. My grandmother taught me to read the stars when I was very young. Without her, I might see nothing more than you do. Then it can be taught? Perhaps. I am trying to teach my roommate, Pelox of the Mirathi. It is difficult. Their mind does not work the same way mine does. Una paused. But I believe anyone can learn to look at the stars differently. Anyone can learn to see patterns instead of numbers. Veth spoke again. Student Una, the review board has reached a decision. Una turned back to the floating jellyfish of light. Yes, instructor. Your examination result stands. You have passed with the highest score in the 6,000-year history of this academy. Veth's lights pulsed with colors Una could not name. Furthermore, we are offering you a teaching position. You will instruct other students in your methods while completing your own studies. Una blinked. A teaching position? But I am only a first-year student. You are also the only being in this station who can do what you do. Veth floated closer. The Navigation Corps has expressed interest. The Galactic Council has expressed interest. You have become the most important person on this station, student Yuna, whether you wanted to or not. Yuna thought about her grandmother, the old woman who had dived into cold water every day of her life. The old woman who had taught a little girl to read the stars. The old woman who had died 3 years ago, never knowing that her lessons would reach beyond the sky. I accept, Yuna said. But I have one condition. Name it. My teaching will be open to all species, not just those with high status or connections. Anyone who wants to learn will be allowed to try. Krell made a sound that might have been a laugh. You think you can teach a Vorthani to navigate by intuition? I think I can try. Yuna smiled. And if I fail, at least your species will know what human navigation feels like. Even if you cannot do it yourselves, you will understand it. And maybe that understanding will change the way you think about the stars. The review board conferred briefly. Then Veth spoke. Your condition is accepted. You will begin teaching next cycle. Yuna bowed. It was a Korean bow, the kind her grandmother had taught her. Respect for those who had given her an opportunity. Gratitude for the chance to share what she knew. When she left the central administration building, the stars were waiting for her outside every window dot, and for the first time since leaving Earth. They did not look strange anymore. They looked like home. Word spread through the galaxy like light through the void. A human had completed the navigation exam in 6 hours. Not through superior computing power. Not through advanced mathematics. Through something the galactic community had no word for. Through instinct. Through memory. Through 100,000 years of looking up at the night sky. Ships arrived at Station Valora every day now, carrying passengers who wanted to see the human navigator. Scientists came to study her brain patterns. Military commanders came to discuss strategy. Philosophers came to ask questions about the nature of consciousness and evolution. Yuna ignored most of them. She had work to do. Her first class was held in the largest lecture hall on the station. It was designed to hold 500 students. On the day Yuna walked in to teach, over 2,000 beings had packed themselves inside. They sat in the aisles. They floated near the ceiling. They pressed against the walls. They had come from 12 star systems to learn what this small human had to teach. Yuna stood at the center of the room and looked out at the most diverse audience she had ever seen. Mirithi with their crystal wings. Volthani with their shadow bodies. Solani floating like clouds of light. Beings of gas and stone and living metal. Species that had mastered space travel before Earth's dinosaurs existed. All of them watching her. Waiting for her. I cannot teach you to see like a human, Yuna said. Her voice was calm, steady, carried by speakers to every corner of the room. Our brains evolved a specific way because of specific pressures. The night sky of Earth shaped us over 100,000 generations. You cannot copy that in a single lifetime. A murmur ran through the crowd. Disappointment, perhaps. But I can teach you what to look for. Yuna raised her hand and the lights dimmed. The hologram of space appeared around her, surrounding her with stars. The relationships between things. The patterns that repeat across the universe. The way light and gravity and matter interact. She began to walk through the hologram, pointing at different formations. Here, this cluster of stars. What do you see? Vorthani answered. 7 main sequence stars in a loose configuration. Average distance between them, 4.2 light years. Combined gravitational influence creates a navigation hazard at these coordinates. Numbers appeared in the air. That is what your instruments tell you. That is not what I asked. Yuna turned to face the Vorthani. I asked what you see. Silence. I see a pattern, Yuna said. The 7 stars are arranged in a shape that looks like a question mark. Or a fishing hook. Or the tail of a dragon, depending on how you look at it. She traced the shape with her finger. The shape tells me nothing about gravitational influence, but it tells me something just as important. It tells me how these stars relate to each other. It tells me where the spaces between them are. It tells me how to move through them without calculating anything. That is inefficient, the Vorthani said. Calculation is always faster than intuition, is it? Yuna smiled. I finished the navigation exam in 6 hours. Your species' best time is 4 days. Which is faster? The Vorthani had no answer. Pelox raised a hand from the front row. Yuna's roommate had been practicing for weeks now, learning to see patterns instead of equations. Progress was slow, but it was real. Yes, Pelox? You said that humans developed this ability because of the night sky on Earth. But many species have night skies. Why did only humans develop this skill? It was a good question. Yuna had thought about it many times. Most species developed technology before they developed intuition, she said. They built tools to read the stars before they learned to read them themselves. By the time they needed navigation, they already had computers to do it for them. The skill became unnecessary, so it never evolved. But humans were different? Humans were poor. Yuna laughed softly at the surprised reactions. We did not have advanced technology for most of our history. We had eyes and brains and memory. When our ancestors needed to cross the ocean, they could not build satellites to guide them. They had to learn the patterns of the sky themselves. When they needed to find their way through forests or deserts or mountains, they could not use GPS. They had to feel direction in their bones. She looked out at her audience. 2,000 beings from 12 star systems, all watching her with new understanding. Poverty made us strong, she said. Limitation made us creative. We learned to do with our minds what others did with machines. And now, 10,000 years after we first looked up at the night sky and wondered what it meant, we are here, among the stars, finding our way through the galaxy the same way we found our way across the ocean. The lecture continued for 3 more hours. Yuna taught them to look for patterns, to see relationships, to trust their instincts when their instruments gave confusing answers. Not all of them understood. Most would never be able to navigate the way she could. But some did. A few students left the lecture with something new in their eyes. A spark that had not been there before. A beginning. After the class ended, Yuna walked alone to the observation lounge on level 12, her favorite spot. Her quiet place. Her connection to the stars that had brought her so far from home. Taiho was waiting for her. The cargo worker had become a friend over the past weeks. He understood what she was feeling in a way that the aliens never could. He was human. He remembered the night sky of Earth. That was a good lecture, he said. I watched from the back. Thank you. Do you think any of them will actually learn? Some. A few. Yuna sat down by the window and pressed her hand against the glass. It is like teaching someone to see colors when they have been blind their whole life. Most will not understand. But the ones who do, they will change everything. You have already changed everything. Yuna shook her head. My grandmother changed everything. She taught me when I was too young to know what I was learning. She gave me the stars when I had no idea what a gift they were. Her voice grew soft. I am just passing on what she gave me. Taiho sat beside her in comfortable silence. Outside the window, the stars burned in their eternal patterns. Different from Earth, but not so different. Not really. The same light. The same darkness. The same endless wonder. I received a message today, Yuna said after a while. From Earth, from my mother. What did she say? She said she's proud of me. She said my grandmother would be proud of me too. Yuna felt tears in her eyes, but did not wipe them away. She said to keep looking up. Good advice. The best. Una looked out at the unfamiliar stars. She thought about her grandmother standing on a wooden boat in the middle of the ocean. No land in sight, nothing but water and sky. She thought about the old songs that told sailors which way was home. She thought about 100,000 years of humans looking up and wondering. And she understood, finally, what her grandmother had been teaching her all along. Navigation was not about math. It was not about computers or equations or instruments. Navigation was about connection. Connection to the stars. Connection to the past. Connection to everyone who had ever looked up at the night sky and felt small and lost and afraid. And also brave. Also curious. Also determined to find the way home. "I made it, Grandmother," Una whispered to the stars. "All the way out here." And I still remember. Somewhere in the star field, a pattern emerged. Not the Pleiades. Not Polaris. Something new. Something she had never seen before. But still, somehow, the way home. Una smiled. The stars smiled back. And somewhere across the galaxy, a new generation of navigators was learning to look up.